The coffee cup hovered in the air, ready to be set down, when the waitress caught sight of the simple silver ring resting on the billionaire's hand. Her face drained of color. The tray trembled. She stared at that band of metal for several long heartbeats before leaning in and whispering something that made the man's entire world stop spinning. She told him her mother owned a ring exactly like it. He looked down slowly at the piece he had worn every single day for 30 years. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't an heirloom passed down through generations. It was one half of a pair he had given to the only woman he had ever truly loved before circumstance tore them apart. For the first time in decades, his hands began to shake uncontrollably. If you believe that love, forgiveness, and second chances can truly change everything, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who might need a little encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that remind us of what really matters. 56-year-old billionaire Alexander Whitmore had built one of the largest engineering firms in Europe from virtually nothing. Magazine covers celebrated his success, yet none of those articles ever mentioned the quiet, persistent sadness that followed him everywhere he went. 3 decades earlier, long before wealth and fame had entered his life, Alexander had fallen deeply in love with a university student named Evelyn Harper. They had very little money, rented a cramped apartment, and spent their evenings dreaming of opening a small engineering business side by side. On the day he received an overseas internship that could reshape both of their futures, he bought 2 plain silver rings from a modest neighborhood jeweler. Unable to afford diamonds, he had a tiny compass engraved inside each band along with 2 small words, "Always home." He promised Evelyn that no matter where life carried them, those rings would always guide them back to each other. But only days later, tragedy intervened. A devastating earthquake disrupted international travel, causing Alexander's flight to be delayed. Communication systems collapsed for weeks, leaving him cut off from the woman he loved. By the time he managed to return home, Evelyn had vanished from her apartment. Neighbors thought she had moved away. His letters came back unopened, and her phone number no longer worked. He searched for years, but eventually, convinced she had chosen a different life, he buried his heartbreak in his work. He never once took off that ring. 30 years later, 26-year-old waitress Claire Harper worked the afternoon shift at the elegant Grand Harbor restaurant, helping to support her widowed mother. Claire had always been drawn to old jewelry, because her mother wore a particular silver ring that she refused to ever remove. When Claire asked about it, her mother would only smile softly and say it reminded her that true love could survive even the most impossible distances. That warm afternoon, Alexander arrived at the restaurant for a business meeting. As Claire poured his coffee, sunlight caught the ring on his hand and reflected across the table. Her heart stopped for a beat. It looked exactly like her mother's, down to the tiny compass engraving that matched perfectly. Without even thinking, she murmured that her mother had a ring just like his. Alexander looked up sharply, his breathing suddenly uneven. Very few people had ever laid eyes on a matching ring to his. Struggling to stay calm, he asked gently where her mother had obtained it. Claire admitted she did not know. She only knew her mother had worn it for as long as she could recall. Alexander pressed with one more question, asking for her mother's name. When she said Evelyn Harper, the coffee cup slipped from his fingers and shattered harmlessly onto the carpet. The entire restaurant turned at the sound, but he could not speak. 30 years of unanswered questions had just been given a name. Confused by his intense reaction, Claire called her mother and asked if she could come to the restaurant after work. Just over an hour later, Evelyn walked quietly through the front door. Time had silvered her hair, but Alexander recognized her instantly. She stopped in her tracks. The ring on his hand caught the late afternoon sun, and she touched the matching one she still wore. Neither of them moved for a long, breathless moment. Then Evelyn began to explain what had truly happened all those years ago. After Alexander had left, she had discovered she was expecting their child. Before she could share the news, the earthquake severed all contact. Around the same time, her father grew critically ill in another state, so she moved to care for him, convinced that Alexander had accepted a permanent overseas position after every letter she sent was returned due to temporary postal failures caused by the disaster. Years passed, and both of them believed the other had chosen a different path. Neither had stopped loving, and neither had removed their ring. Claire stood quietly between them, slowly realizing that the father her mother had only spoken of through fading old memories had been standing right in front of her all along. Alexander apologized for every year they had lost, and Evelyn admitted she had made the same painful assumptions. Neither blamed the other. Sometimes life separates people not through betrayal, but through tragic misunderstandings and impossible circumstances that leave both sides believing they have been abandoned. Over the following months, Alexander became a steady presence in Claire's life, not by rushing to recover lost decades overnight, but by patiently earning every new memory they created together. He learned about birthdays he had missed, graduations he had never attended, and all the dreams Claire still hoped to achieve. In turn, Claire discovered that the billionaire everyone admired was simply a father grateful for one unexpected second chance. Together, they established the Always Home Foundation, which provides travel assistance and communication support for families torn apart by natural disasters and humanitarian emergencies. Alexander often displayed his ring at foundation events, and whenever someone asked why such a wealthy man wore such a simple piece of silver, he would smile and reply that some promises were worth far more than diamonds. Before this story closes, we would love to hear from you. Do you believe true love can survive years of separation when both people never stop believing? Please leave a meaningful comment below, because your story might encourage someone who still clings to the hope that love is worth holding on to. Years later, on another warm afternoon filled with sunlight streaming into the Foundation's community center, Claire watched her parents laughing together as they welcomed reunited families through the doors. Alexander looked down gently at the old silver ring that had traveled with him through 30 years of loneliness. It had never truly been a symbol of what he had lost. It had quietly been waiting to become the symbol of everything he had found again. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Always remember, sometimes the smallest ring carries the biggest promise, and love has a remarkable way of finding its way home.